My grandfather probably treated his depression with physical labor. And the evidence of that work would stand all around him. A barn, a 4-mile-long fence, a herd of cows standing in the community. Also 4 sons who worked. In other words, they externalized that part of themselves. But if you try to externalize that part of yourself in sales work, you'll find yourself in the death of a salesman, in which the externalization keeps evaporating and melting. Is that right?
Yes.
And then he's completely empty at 60, and his sons are completely empty. On the other hand, if you try to externalize this part of yourself in the internet, you'll find yourself empty at 25 instead of 60. So we're talking here about this entire huge thing. What does it mean that you put all your work into the internet and actually there's nothing there? What does that mean? It's all invisible.
What also strikes me is that the hands that are involved, there's something about a hands-on sort of thing, and now it's moved to the ends of the fingertips.
That's interesting. You said it used to be hands, now it's just the tips of the fingers? Whoa.
Move away. You remember that the line, Robert, the body, what is it? What's the line with it pulls back and moves away? I can't.
Oh, yeah. So it pulls back so it's safe.
Yes.
That's right.
We used to involve ourselves with the touching of stone and wood and understand the essential forms that are given to us by universe and connect to the universe as a whole, because the universe has structure, and we feel that in the wood and in the stone and in the water, but we don't feel that structure. And when we come from a culture that hated nature and essentially dominated nature, has won that struggle, now we go to create things and we have no good idea as to the actual shape of the universe.
Yep.
And we are lost as to how to...
But see, that's also like the external quality of the universe made of stone is disappearing. We don't touch it with our hand. I'm going to continue to go on now. It's noticeable that when men externalize their energy, they don't often succeed in doing loving very well. The dark side of this externalization into barns and fences is that the men often did their externalization wonderfully, but they didn't often succeed in loving very well. So, your son saying, I can see my father's self-esteem in those new factory buildings, but I didn't feel loved. Then meant my father didn't do much loving. Well, who does the loving then? The mothers do it. The mothers do. Now I want to get to this next point here. The mothers not only do the loving, but they also internalize. They love the sons, but they also internalize the sons. So I want you to keep that same metaphor of internalizing a little humming that I do, and then when the son is there, they internalize the son. All of a sudden, you are sharing your mother's blood supply. You're sharing her acupuncture points. You're sharing her nervous system. You know what I'm talking about? You're 1 to 2 years old. Father isn't really a part of you yet. Mother needs you. Mother really wants that little masculine energy. She can internalize it. And she doesn't seem to realize that that's extremely dangerous to you. Doesn't know that. Maybe because if you internalize a daughter, it's fine. I don't know. I don't know what it is. But that happened to me. And my mother internalized me, and that's why I say I inherited my covert depression from her. She just did it by opening her veins and putting my veins in. So, all of a sudden you're sharing your mother's blood supply and her nervous system. To her it's natural. But in you, after you pull away or try to pull away, you realize that the internalization has some quality of a machine to it. And I say now, I have a covert depression machine, which I inherited or transferred from my mother's body. And because I didn't create it, I can't control it. Is that clear? If I've inherited my mother's covert depression, it's hers. I can't control that. It's like a machine that she started. Now it's in my body. The whole process of separation from the mother, an idea which the feminist men hate, amounts really to shutting this machine off that you got from your mother. And oftentimes the machine involves covert depression, it involves victim thinking, it involves internalized shame, judgment. A lot of male depreciation is in that thing. So you got to say the feminist men really got huge machines attached to their mothers, just huge. And some of the blood that's flowing is, oh yeah, males again. And so they're just repeating this over and over, just like a machine does, without ever checking to see if it's true for them. So, and at the same time, one wants to be able to say this without saying that mothers are demonic or women are evil or anything like that. It isn't that way. It's that there's something in the human system in which the female system internalizes. Well, of course, in the womb, the women internalize the entire evolutionary system. That's what they do. We're just shooting a few things out here and there, hoping it'll catch, you know. But more the merrier, from our point of view. But from their point of view, this whole evolutionary thing is inside of them. They internalized it. So they go into an internalization trance, which doesn't mean that they're wicked. But if you get caught in that trance, you know that there's something in you that's harming you. And naturally, you might blame your mother. Am I saying anything to you? Just say we got to walk carefully here. My point is that male externalization, that ancient and deep-lying way that we have learned to do to survive our depression is failing. Everything is being internalized. Haven't you heard that the entire Library of Congress will eventually be shrunk to the size of a microchip? Men are in danger as now as never before. Shall we say that technology is feminine and it feminizes everything it touches? That's a little too stark. And yet, the word feminine doesn't quite ring true when you compare technology to it. But you can say that technology infantilizes everyone who touches it. That's a different matter. And I remember saying a few years ago, if you walk to Labrador, you'll be more adult when you get there. But if you drive to Labrador, you'll be more infantile when you arrive.
And
So,
fly.
yeah, then you arrive at 2 years old. So I mentioned I wrote a chapter of the Sibling Society about the infantilization that's going on now. That we regress more and more deeply in our relationships. And this regression is taking place on a massive level on the outer world, which is a huge community that we all inhabit whether we have relationships at all. The shortage of mentors and elders that troubles Aaron Kipnis so much is an unmistakable thing, and it's happening over the whole globe. So rather than saying technology is at the base feminine, which doesn't strike women as even slightly true, let us think of technology as an infantilizing element. It's also paradoxical because in the area of male internalizations, we no longer have horses, but we have computers. We no longer have barns, but we have invisible memory banks. So we're going back to our original statement. Men are organized with many exceptions for externalization. Women are organized with many exceptions for internalization. And the evidence of men's courage and men's ability to make safe places for our children is disappearing. I may be a father and 50, but I'll wear funny little shirts. I'll wear baseball caps on backwards in the house. Hawthorne may have written Scarlet Letter, which was a monument of intelligence. But any deconstructionist internalizer can declare that null and void. Can declare scarlet letter to be nothing. It's nothing. It's being done in universities all the time now. And Melville is a fascist, he's nothing. Hawthorne's nothing. They're all dead white males. And that's a way of destroying the externalization that was done in literature. I say anything to you? So I may have created a publishing house like Knopf, by example, by hard labor over 50 years and talking with every writer and making sure that every writer that I published was great. And then one 28-year-old guy by hostile takeover can take that in one afternoon and destroy it in 2 weeks.
It happened.
Yeah, it happened. That's right. The pension, which is an externalized form of my work over 4 decades, and is lying, so to speak, in some exterior bank vault, can be evaporated overnight by a stock transfer. So there's another externalization that's gone. These men worked, and then they had their pension, and that was it, and it was me. I have my pension, now we can go to Florida, now we can do this. That's an externalization of all the work I've done all my life. And now, boom, it's gone. Noting that most men have externalized their labor in the past, they can't hold on to it any longer. And it isn't women who are destroying pension plans. It's men, particularly young sibling men, who have grown up in a society in which further infantilization is the rule. And internalization is all feminine. They are the ones who have broken the habit of respecting the externalized achievements of other men. Some women delight, of course, in ritualized and malicious destruction of male achievements, called the canon. But we mustn't imagine that women have destroyed elderhood. Something else has done that. So, if technology moves to infantilize everyone, then when technology fully arrives, physical labor totally disappears as a good in the lives of men. Women, by the way, still retain a lot of physical work inside the home. You notice that? Women can look around and see the externalization of their work in the form of a good kitchen, a good house, etc., etc., etc. And many of them are much more sane than the men because they continue to do physical work. So it's strange that men, with the help of science, would destroy the physical work that they once did. It seems very strange. And it really hasn't been urged on by women. So when all the physical work is gone, internalization is now the norm. So we can say that a man can still go to Alaska, and he can do externalization in the old way, by building himself a cabin and having a garden. He can do that. But in a few decades, that'll be gone. So what I want to say then is if we remain in the culture we are, men will no longer have any way out of their covert depressions, inherited by internalization from their mothers or channeled by the workaholic routines of their fathers. So I'll just say a couple more things and quit. If externalization is becoming impossible, then what do men do? If there's no longer any way in which you can work for 10 years and then walk out in the field and say, that's mine over there, that's my house, and that's my garden over there, and those are my fields, these are my sons, they do work with me all the time.
Did you get a hobby?
No, you work. The hobby becomes an addiction.
Yep. I don't know what to say to this now, you see. But I know that it isn't going to be computers that are going to save it. That's a form of the dissolving and the meltdown. Yeah, so there's some way in which the longhouse is necessary now. In a way it wasn't before with us. So I believe that there is a way of internalization. If externalization is gone, what can men do? They can teach each other a form of internalization that's masculine, not feminine. To internalize anger fruitfully, as John Lee teaches, we don't go out in the street and hit someone in an externalized way or wreck a house. But instead, we go inside to meet the anger, become friends with it, and then play with it a little, as if it were a friend. To internalize shame, one needs, first of all, to pull out the shame machine which your mother internalized and then transfer to you her shame without your permission. And then to recognize that shame and covert depression are the same thing. The 12-step program is about men not externalizing their covert depression by supporting bars and drug dealers, but agreeing to sit with the covert depression, as our fathers did not, and wait until we can see the whites of its eyes. Or as the shamans say, we need to wait until we can throw ashes on that ghost so you can see the shape of the ghost. That's what the 12-step program is like. Yeah, I learned something. See, just because I'm a Norwegian, he's amazed every time that I learn something. All right, so writing poetry is one of the great male forms of internalization. Poetry is apparently an art invented and produced by men for thousands and thousands of years, and only recently adopted by women. That's interesting. How is poetry, and that's a form of internalization, which doesn't attach rods to you or anything else? I haven't really thought about that very much, but I think it's true. It's very different from female internalization. It too results in becoming friends with your self-esteem and becoming knowledgeable, not about what you can build out of 2x4s, but what you can love and what you do love. Writing poetry, you become aware of what you do love, what you can love. And Machado did that in that little poem, even there. So I return to my idea in the start, that we are so used to the externalization of the energy that we have saved from our covert depression that we keep looking for that. And the men in the men's work are not working hard enough. I want to say that. I feel it's true. I feel it's true here in Minnesota, too. We think that women will do this for us. Or we keep trying to achieve some self-esteem by externalizing. Externalizing on the internet is easy and it results in your death. But men will come to these meetings and they'll take some honey away, but they don't become bees themselves. And so I just want to say that that's what I feel. We've been doing this 15, 16 years, and some of the men have been very strong and continued. But a lot of them just take the honey and go home. And it lasts a couple of months, and then they feel empty again. And meanwhile, they continue to want to externalize, or they're already internalizing in the woman's way, and they don't do this work, whatever it is. I think this men's work is an interesting phrase. I didn't invent it, nobody invented it. But there's some way in which men in the men's movement are not working hard enough. And you notice it in the books. No one buys the books. Women, for example, in the women's movement will buy a book even if they don't intend to read it. Just in order to support the fact that women should be able to publish books and have them published. And now it's almost impossible to publish a book in the men's work anymore because the men wouldn't even buy them in the past. So now you get a really good book and you turn it in and nobody's going to print it. And John said, I'm amazed that Scribner would agree to publish this book. Because every time you turn on it and say, no, men's books don't sell, men don't read. Well, if we don't read, it's all over. If we're not going to have a longhouse with serious people in it, and we're not going to have barns, then the whole thing is over. So I'm just urging you to don't pick the honey here that Martine offers you and just go home. I'm saying to you, beware. To be an elder today means to learn how to internalize in the new way and to teach young men, all of whose landmarks have been melted away. To slowly disengage from the internalization of the mother, which she does unconsciously and without intent to harm you, and to take charge of our own nervous systems. So, that's my thoughts.